Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. We are back here today after Purdue's 56-0 win over Indiana State to get the Boilermakers in the win column, going to 1-1 on the season. You know, they say you can only play who's on your schedule, and Purdue had an opportunity to play a FCS opponent, a much outmatched opponent on Saturday. And they did exactly what we discussed before the game that you want them to do, and that is dominate. I had said, you know, you really want to see Purdue dominate this game if they're a legitimate Big Ten West contender. And the way some results panned out on Saturday, I think you feel a little bit better about that. But Purdue did exactly what they needed to do. Indiana State was by far the inferior team in every phase of the game. They did not have a good offense. Their defense could not match up to the level of athletes that Purdue had. And Purdue did absolutely what they needed to do. Going to talk about this game a little bit. You know, there's only so much you can take away from these games, though. We don't necessarily have great context on how good Indiana State even is at the FCS level. They could be a 500 team in the Missouri Valley. They could be above that. They could be below that. You know, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to understand how good these teams actually are because they're just so overwhelmed and overmatched against a better opponent. We saw a lot of good things from Purdue, though. I guess to start at, the absolute top with Aiden O'Connell. I thought that against Penn State, he did not have a great day. I thought that, his fourth quarter against Penn State, he really struggled with, but he came out against Indiana State and 17 for 19, 211 yards, 4 touchdowns. Absolutely what you want to see. He took advantage of a defense that wasn't all that good, but I thought the timing was better. I thought the timing with his receivers was better. I thought the decision-making was better. There was only really one throw that was in danger. Probably should have been picked off, but really good decision-making from him. And when I was thinking about this game yesterday morning, before the game started, when you do these podcasts, you think about all these points throughout the week after you've already posted the podcast. Drives me crazy, but I wanted to see Purdue make more plays down the field because that is such an integral part of this offense, is being able to strike for big plays down the field, and we saw that. We saw a deep ball to Charlie Jones for a touchdown. We saw Paul Paferi score a touchdown on a seam route right down the field. A couple of big play touchdowns there. Those are what you like to see. We know that in this offense, it's critically important to hit the short passes. O'Connell certainly did a better job of that than he did against Penn State, a much weaker secondary. But all in all, a very good performance from O'Connell. I think you have to like what you saw from him. We saw Charlie Jones absolutely dominated again. And it's funny because I've spent so much of the time since that Penn State game talking about who is the number 2 guy. But man, Charlie Jones is turning into a legitimate number 1 receiver. He's been fantastic. And I think seeing some of the stats tweeted out, I think he's already now eclipsed his yardage count from last season at Iowa in just really a game and a half because he didn't play the second half. That's pretty incredible. He is legit, though. How Iowa didn't get more out of him, I don't know. But 9 catches for $133 and 3 touchdowns. He's really good. The chemistry between him and Aiden O'Connell is there, no doubt. I know it's been years since they played youth football together, but there's something there. It's clear as day when you watch them out on the field. He is really good. He is going to be Purdue's go-to guy all season. But when we looked at who that number 2 guy could be, I wasn't really sure, and I'm still not sure. We saw Tyrone Tracy get far more involved in the offense yesterday. I'm recording this on Sunday morning. Jeff Brom had really talked throughout the week about how he wanted to get Tracy more involved. He wanted to get Tracy more touches, and he did that. He had 3 carries for 34 yards and then 4 receptions for 37 yards. So, doing the math on the fly here, but about 70 yards on 7 touches. Not half bad. Good game for him. It was good to see him get more involved. I think guys have to get more involved in general. And I think seeing him in the backfield is a nice little touch. I don't know what all to make of the backfield while we're on that topic. You know, King Doru got himself in the end zone on Purdue's first drive. And then I don't even know, did we see him again after that? I don't remember if he came out for the second possession or not. But we got to see a number of different running backs carry the ball. Devin Mockabee was probably the story of the game from the backfield. The walk-on from Boonville. 13 carries for 78 yards and a touchdown. You had Dylan Downing, walk-on from Carmel, 11 for 55 and a touchdown. And then Kobe Lewis, the Central Michigan transfer, 12 carries for him, 37 yards. So the bulk of the carries went to guys behind Doru. And that's kind of how it should be in games like this. You don't need to get Doru taking more hits than he already does. There's just no need for that. Now, the natural reaction is, Mockabee had a good game. Downing had a good game. Why aren't these guys getting carries over Doru? That's a bit too far of a step to take. Remember that this is a far inferior opponent. They are by no means equipped to match Purdue at the line of scrimmage. And this isn't exactly a Purdue program that is known for what it does at the line of scrimmage. But nonetheless, they still are not equipped to match Purdue there. There's a lot more room to run against Indiana State than there will be against most Big Ten teams. Purdue ran for 232 yards on the ground. That's the most that we've seen Purdue run for since 2018 at Illinois. And if you remember that game, that was a bloodbath that kind of felt similar to this one. I thought it was interesting to see Purdue's quarterback management in the second half. Austin Burton took the first series, and it was interesting to see how different the offense looked with him. There was a lot of zone read type stuff, a lot of designed runs for the quarterback. He had 2 carries for 15 yards, 3 for 3 passing. The offense just looked different. It almost looked like a different playbook. So I thought that was really interesting because he does provide an element of things that you can do that you can't do with Aiden O'Connell. Now, he certainly can't throw the ball remotely as well as Aiden O'Connell, but that was interesting. You saw Michael Amo come in then, and I thought he looked good. I had to chuckle when I think it was 49-0, and he's taking a 35-yard shot to the end zone to Deion Burks. He's a gunslinger. We saw it in the spring game. The kid is a gunslinger. But I thought he looked pretty good. He made a few nice passes that I thought looked really crisp. And then we saw Brady Allen. Good to see him get on the field. Again, it's hard to really take away big judgments for performances for anybody against this game, but a good showing for Purdue's offense. We saw Brock Thompson play, but we didn't see him record any receptions. Mershawn Rice, same deal. It just really, outside of Charlie Jones and Tyrone Tracy, just a smattering of different guys with a catch or two. And there's nothing wrong with that. Purdue really didn't need to throw the ball for most of this game. So, You'd prefer that, but you certainly don't have a whole lot more clarity on Purdue's offense than you did after Penn State. Unfortunately, I think maybe the biggest story to come from yesterday as a whole was the news that Jalen Graham, Purdue's best player on defense, was going to miss 3 to 4 games due to a tibia injury. Golden Black's Tom Dienhart reported that. Going to miss 3 to 4 games. That is a significant blow. He didn't play yesterday. Didn't need to. Even if he was healthy, you'd be fine without him. But that's a big-time blow. We saw Purdue counter a couple of different ways. They came out to start the game in a nickel base. They moved Chris Jefferson over to the nickelback position and had Sanusi Kane back at safety, it appeared. That's what it looked like to me. Makes sense. Jefferson played over at that nickel position last year, so that's a natural fit. And then they did go, a little bit with a 4-3 base and plug Clyde Washington or Jacob Wahlberg into that third linebacker spot. If you're doing that, you really are relying on O.C. Brothers quite a bit. He is the fastest guy outside of Jalen Graham in that linebacker room. And, of course, against Indiana State, you didn't need too much from him. But moving forward, especially against the type of offense Purdue's going to play next week, it's going to be very interesting to see what type of personnel packages that Ron English rolls out there without Jalen Graham as really that nice little hybrid between a linebacker and a safety. He's very, very useful. It's a bummer that he's hurt. He's your best NFL prospect. You hope he's back soon. You would love to have him back for that next Big Ten game up in Minneapolis. Time will tell. We'll see what goes on there. But as a whole, Purdue's defense was lights out. There were a couple of possessions in the first half where it looked like Purdue's defense was maybe sleepwalking a little bit. Indiana State hit a big play or two, but the Purdue defense tightened up in the red zone. You kind of feel for Indiana State getting shut out. They had the ball at the 1-yard line and didn't score. And then they had the ball inside the 10 again in the second quarter and threw a pick. So, it probably shouldn't have been a shutout in that regard. But credit to Purdue's defense for tightening up in the red zone. They were dominant. We saw Cam Allen record his first career pick 6. That was very good. We saw the game start. The first play of the game, Sanusi Kane forcing a fumble that Cam Allen recovered. Purdue's defense looked good. Purdue's defense did absolutely what it needed to do. It was not a good day for Indiana State's quarterbacks, who might not be that good. They do have a good receiver. Dante Hendricks had a nice day. He looked good. He looks the part of an FBS receiver. But, they got 1.4 yards per carry. Of course, getting sacked 4 times on the day doesn't help. But Purdue's defense was really good. I'm pulling up. I've got stats up here. Total offense, 145 yards for Indiana State. That's got to be the lowest that Purdue's allowed in seemingly forever. I talked about wanting to see Purdue clean up the penalties, and boy, did they ever. Only 3 penalties on the game for 14 yards, and I know one of them was a block in the back on Corey Trice on Jamari Brown's interception return. So you can throw that one out. Really a good, clean game for Purdue. The only mishap was Andrew Sawinski bobbling a punt return. You don't want it to happen, but it's a walk-on punt returner. So be it. It was a really clean game from that perspective. Purdue did what they had to do. And I think when you look at this game, you got a lot of players in, which is always nice. It may be the only time you get to empty the bench all season. So it was good to see a bunch of specialists get in the game. Julio Macias kicking off, Crockover kicking an extra point. It was cool. I mean, you got to see a lot of guys getting out there and playing some football. I should have been better at watching the true freshmen. I know Caraway got on the field. I know Brady Allen got on the field. I presume Amanade got on the field because he did against Penn State. But all in all, Purdue was very good. And on a day in college football, when you saw a bunch of crazy stuff happen, Texas A&M loses to App State, Notre Dame loses to Marshall. Marcus Freeman's really showing that he was a Darrell Hazel assistant so far. Wisconsin loses to Washington State. Crazy day in the sport, so very good that Purdue was not a part of that. Purdue moves forward now. You don't have Jalen Graham. You have plenty to feel good about, though. You're going to Syracuse. We will be back in the middle of the week with a full preview of that Syracuse game. It feels like it's going to be a must-win situation for Purdue if you want to get to that win total that you were hoping for. If you want to get to that 8-9 win number, you really don't want to start 1-2. It's certainly not an easy game. Syracuse looks better than I expected and probably better than most expected, but Purdue looked really good this week, and I think they cleaned up a lot of the areas that you wanted to see them clean up. They didn't commit turnovers. They didn't, my mind blanked there. They didn't commit a lot of penalties. Aiden O'Connell looked crisp. They stayed healthy for the most part, I think. We won't really know until Jeff Brom talks tomorrow what guys were injured or dinged up. We knew we wouldn't see Elijah Canyon. We knew we wouldn't see Abdur-Rahman Yassin. Maybe those guys are able to come back soon. I don't know. But, moving forward, this is a game that you can feel good about. I think Purdue's depth really showed here by winning 56-0. It's, again, an overmatched team, but Purdue has the depth now that they can roll their third team out, and they're still dominant. Their third team defense is still dominant against this Indiana State offense. That speaks to the depth that Jeff Brom has recruited on this roster. It was one of the things I noticed when I was out watching fall camp practices. It's a deeper team than Jeff Brom has ever had at Purdue. It may not have the top-end star talent that he had with a George Karlaftis, a David Bell, or a Rondale Moore, but just the overall depth of the roster is leaps and bounds ahead of what it was in 2017 and 2018. So I'll close it out on that. Purdue did exactly what they had to do. And now you move forward in an absolutely critical game as far as the non-conference and win total goes. It doesn't have any bearing on the Big Ten West, which looks surprisingly vulnerable. I think based off what we've seen through 2 weeks, and now you don't want to form any conclusions this early in the season, but that game on October 1st up at Minneapolis, that's going to be a massive game in determining who wins the Big Ten West and who has a bit of an edge. Purdue is in a difficult spot because they're already one loss into the Big Ten season, but in theory, they do control their own destiny in the West. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for joining me for a quick little post-game show. We will be back. Let's plan on Wednesday morning, probably. The Syracuse pregame show will hit your podcast feeds. So tweet any questions about the team, about Syracuse, anything you've got. Tweet them over to me at Boilers Beyond. And be sure to follow there if you don't already. Subscribe to Boilers and Beyond wherever you get your podcasts. Don't miss an episode, guys. We're coming at you frequently this season to talk about Boilermaker football. And hey, if you don't mind, if you got friends that need some Purdue content in their lives, send the show over their way. Until Wednesday, guys, take care. Enjoy your NFL Sunday, and hopefully the Chicago Bears can pull off an upset today.